This morning. I'd like to start my questions off by focusing on some of the funding proposals and the alternatives that are contained within the proposal. Director Jarvis, as I look at this, it appears that there are 4 new types of funds in your proposal, plus the $900 million for the NPS construction account. And I guess I'm looking at them and see that the funds essentially do the same thing. They're just funded in slightly different ways. So the question to you to start off is, why do we need to have so many funds? Should we be focusing in one area more directly? I'd like to get to the issue of, for instance, the lodging fees and discussion about that, but also the endowment. So again, you've got 4 funds, all taking you to the same place. Why do you need that?
Thank you, Chairwoman. That's a great question. It is a little complicated the way it's been laid out. I think when you look at the needs of the National Park Service, particularly an infrastructure standpoint, there are assets which I believe are inherently a federal responsibility, and I could probably never raise money for. A wastewater treatment plant or a water line, a potable water line like at the Grand Canyon, I cannot go out and raise philanthropic dollars to fix that. Then there are projects like, the repair of the Iwo Jima Memorial, where David Rubenstein stepped up and gave us $5 million to fix that. So you separate those out and think about there's a set of projects with the Centennial Challenge where the skin in the game, as Will indicates, we could put up money from the federal side and get a match, or even better than one-to-one match, to fix projects that are of high profile. Then there are a larger subset of projects that we are requesting the $300 million for multiple years that are really just sort of basic responsibilities of infrastructure needs of the National Park Service, which we have an aging infrastructure. And then there's the promotion of the Find Your Park campaign is impacting all of the land management agencies. So Fish and Wildlife Service, U.S. Forest Service, and BLM as well are all seeing increases in recreational use on those lands as well. So we felt that the campaign really is a big tent for everybody, so there's an opportunity there. And then the 4th category is really about new revenue sources, with the increase in the senior pass and then the lodging tax gives us an opportunity to utilize those funds very effectively in sort of new ways and leveraging those. So you're really looking at 4 different categories of funds that can be applied to these issues.
Let me ask about the lodging fees. You look at how it's structured, it seems to function more like a federal tax. You've got a situation now where in many of our parks, our overnight visitors are already paying local and state taxes, as well as perhaps other fees on their lodging. It's my understanding that visitors pay an 11% tax on lodging in Yosemite. So if you're looking at adding another 5% in certain areas, I think you're going to have folks look at that and say that's a little bit more than they're willing to do. What percentage of parks, and I'll direct this both to you, Director Jarvis, as well as Ms. Pierno, what percentage of parks have local taxes and fees that are added on to the cost of lodging at overnight accommodations within the parks? And really, is this going to be something that is going to have an impact on individuals' desires to come and utilize our parks, or is it going to be just what people accept as the price of using our parks? Director, I'll start with you and Ms. Pierno, and then I'd also welcome Mr. Shafroth or Mr. Crandall. I think Mr. Shafroth, you suggested that the lodging fees were reasonable, but I'd like to hear comments from all of you on that.
I'll keep my response short. We have been reaching out, sort of a data call to all of our parks. We don't have a centralized database on this, on who is collecting additional taxes on top of it, and I honestly don't have the hard data. I'll follow up with you on which of the individual hotels are collecting what would be considered a tourism tax It's common practice across the country for a tourism tax to be layered on top of a hotel. If you go to New York City, it's $25 or whatever on top of existing taxes. And that money is usually pooled specifically for things like marketing. That's our suggestion here. The bill says up to 5%, and I think we'd have to think about, how to apply that percentage. It would not be a straight across the board. We would look at each individual hotel lodging unit to determine how appropriate that would be applied. If it's already being collected, obviously we wouldn't be doing that as well. So that's the way we would apply it.
Ms. Pierno? Go ahead and push your button.
Oh, jeez. So
You'll
the
get
bill
it.
proposes a 5% lodging and camping fee be charged for each person, which actually would bring in about, or actually less than $12.5 million annually. So it's a relatively small amount. And there are other recommendations as well, and I think it's important for the committee to look at all of these fee opportunities. There have been suggestions about increasing and creating a $1 centennial fee at the gate. Because, as you know, many of the parks do not even charge an entrance fee, so then there's that issue as well. And it's very difficult on the camping fee side to actually be able to implement this, given just the structure and the camping facilities. But I think it is important to really analyze the fee structures and to look at where it makes sense and where there's a possibility to increase it. Because I think at this point, given the severe funding needs for the national parks, we need to look at all of these different areas.
Okay. Quick comments, Mr. Shafroth?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would agree with Director Jarvis on this. I think we need to, first of all, have a better understanding of exactly where the existing fees are already being applied. We don't want to do something that's going to drive down demand for the lodging and other facilities, obviously, and if there's already being applied, as John said, that we would not want to impose an additional fee on top of that. My sense is that in some places the demand is fairly elastic, and there may be an opportunity to provide, some measure of an increase. And I guess the last thing I would say is that I agree with Teresa as well, that there isn't a silver bullet here. We need to look at a broad diversity of options in order to kind of raise sufficient funding to meet the opportunities that the Centennial Challenge suggests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we are the people who collect the fees, and we can tell you that an overwhelming majority of the hotels, lodges that are in national parks are subject to various tourism taxes. So I think we're going to find that this is a duplicative tax. Our worry is that it goes against the basic philosophy of trying to invite personal support for national parks. And rather than find the situation, I'm flying to Denver, I'm going to be renting a car, I'm paying $10 a day for the car, but by the time I pay for all of the taxes, I'll be paying $32 a day for that car. We don't want that to happen. We already have, I can tell you, with the national park concessions, we have utility pass-throughs, we have state and local sales taxes, and we have hotel tourism taxes on most of these. This is not a deal breaker, but I would suggest that it's going after a very small percentage of park users, and that number of overnight stays is already down 17%. I'm not sure that's what we want to do, is focus on a declining market.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Senator Cantwell.